still seems to confuse his prior role as the president's personal attorney with his duty to the system of justice and to the entire country, should resign.
Former U.S. attorneys are alleging improper political pressure, including David Iglesias, who testified he received an inappropriate phone call from a Republican senator pushing him to indict local Democrats.
I felt sick afterward. I felt leaned on. I felt pressured.
There's evidence of political interference and pressure being put on them to engage in partisan political activities.
Clinton is just the latest to call for Gonzales' resignation.
There has been unprecedented breach of trust, abuse of power, and misuse of the Justice Department.
And while the Attorney General admitted mistakes were made in handling the firings, many senators point to email evidence of plans to dismiss the U.S. attorneys, indicating that his testimony on January 18th was not fully forthcoming.
I would never, ever make a change in a United States attorney position for political reasons.
Most telling, a deafening silence from Republicans, such as Texas Senator John Cornyn, one of the administration's strongest allies and an old friend of Gonzales, calling for a fair investigation.
In Texas, we believe in having a fair trial, and then we have the hanging.
And beyond Gonzales' actions are more questions about the roles played in the firings by President Bush and top aide Karl Rove.
The president needs to be very forthcoming. What did he say? What did he know? What did he ask people to do? Karl Rove is clearly in the middle of this, and I think he owes the Congress and the country an explanation.
The next step, congressional hearings with the Attorney General in the hot seat. And George, this is not going away anytime soon.
No, it is not. Thanks, Jake. And we are joined now from Washington by the Attorney General, Alberto Gonzales. Senator Hillary Clinton says there is evidence of political pressure on these prosecutors who were fired and that you should resign. What's your response?
George, I'm focused on doing my job as Attorney General. Obviously, I'm not happy with the way some of the decisions were made, the implementation of the decisions made with respect to these 7 United States attorneys. We've discovered some of the problem. We've assessed accountability, and we're going to work with the Congress to make sure they fully understand what happened here.
But, Mr. Attorney General, something does seem fishy here. 5 of the 8 who were dismissed were involved in high-profile political corruption cases. 4 were going after Republicans accused of corruption or had gone after Republicans. 1 was being complained about because he wasn't going after Democrats aggressively enough. So it really does appear here, at least, like you singled out prosecutors who weren't with the program.
You know, sadly, George, if that were the case, there would have been many more U.S. attorneys who would have been asked to leave, because we have public corruption investigations and prosecutions going on all over the country at the state, federal, local level. And I'm very proud of the work of the United States attorneys in going after those public officials who breach the public trust. And so those in no way had anything to do with these decisions. I would never retaliate, nor would I ever make a decision with respect to the removal of the United States attorney that would interfere with an ongoing investigation. But the fact that an investigation is ongoing doesn't provide tenure protection for a United States attorney if they're not otherwise doing their job.
Well, excuse me, sir, but 5 out of the 8 of these also got good or excellent performance reviews.
George, there were a number of factors that went into this decision, and one of the things that I'm concerned about is whether or not we have an adequate system in place of communicating with U.S. attorneys with respect to concerns we have with respect to performance. And so we'll be looking at that going forward. I will just say that there were a number of factors that went into this decision that was made at the Department of Justice and recommended to the White House.
You are now getting a lot of complaints, not only from Democrats, but a parade of Republican senators have started to complain about this issue, calling it troubling, badly handled, even idiocy. Senator Tom Coburn called it idiocy. What do you say to your Republican allies who are so troubled by this?
I would say that the mistakes were made, and as I said yesterday,
what were your mistakes?
George, my mistakes were, let me just say this, you know, I'm responsible for everything that happens at the Department of Justice. I relied upon my chief of staff to drive this process in terms of evaluating where we could make improvements in districts. I relied upon my chief of staff to ensure that people who were communicating to the Hill had all the appropriate information to make sure that the communications to the Hill were complete and were accurate. And in that sense, I could have done a better job. And so I will be focused on ensuring that we do a better job going forward, and I will be focused on ensuring that we provide information to the Congress so they know what happened here.
When was the last time you spoke to the President about this?
I spoke to the President shortly before he left on his trip to Latin America. But again, I enjoy working for this President. It's a privilege to serve as the Attorney General of the United States. But I serve at the pleasure of the President and will continue to do my job so long as that remains the case.
Do you think you let him down?
I think, again, with respect to any large organization, mistakes are made. I am accountable for those kinds of mistakes. The question is not whether mistakes are made so much, but what do we do in response to those mistakes? We identify those mistakes, we take corrective measures, and we move forward doing the job for the American people.
And if it turns out that evidence of political interference does come up in these emails and other communications, will you resign?
Complaints should not rise to the level that there's going to be retaliation in response to a public corruption case, or we shouldn't take actions that would in any way interfere with a public corruption case. But obviously we have an obligation to ensure that DOJ employees, political appointees who serve at the pleasure of the President, are doing their job.
So you're not going anywhere?
I serve at the pleasure of the President, George.
Mr. Attorney General, thank you very much.
Thank you, George.
Well, Robin, one place he is going is Congress. He is going to get grilled up there.
Well, as Jake said earlier, this is far from being over. Now, Chris Cuomo